From the ages of 0 to 18 years old, you're basically living relatively carefree lives with minimal responsibilities. However, from the ages of 18 to 30, as a young man, you are expected to navigate the world successfully and thrive in an environment in which you are thrown into without any training or warnings of the potential threats that lie there in wait of your arrival. Today, I will be talking about the 5 pitfalls that young men are likely to experience and how you can avoid making these common mistakes. Remember, a smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from others' mistakes. Let's dive right in. The first pitfall that young men are likely to face is neglecting financial planning and literacy. This is very common amongst young men, especially from the ages of 18 to 25. From 25 to 30, most men will start to get the idea that financial planning and literacy is very crucial to living a stress-free life. My father was terrible at financial planning and literacy, but I guess he gets a pass because he immigrated to Canada and he ended up giving me a pretty good childhood and upbringing. So I'm going to give him a pass on that one. So he didn't have the same education that I did and likely was never exposed to the proper financial practices anyway. But he always told me growing up that the 3 things I should never fuck up are my driving record, my criminal record, and my credit. Without my dad instilling this into my brain at a young age, I would have likely racked up a bunch of credit card debt and made extremely stupid purchases like all my friends did when they were 18 to 25. I always had good credit. I wouldn't say I was I wouldn't say I'm like super financially savvy or anything because I was broke plenty of times as a young man, but I never had any outstanding debt and always made sure to pay it in full and only use my cards if I had the money to pay it right away. This is the way you should treat credit cards because the interest rate on those are extremely high compared to other types of loans. So you don't want to get wrecked by that because you wanted to buy something you couldn't afford. Live within your means. There's absolutely no shame in saying no to something if you cannot afford it at that time. And you can always circle back and purchase it later if you still desire it, of course. Another thing that is very popular amongst young men is gambling or sports betting. Now, I fell victim to this in my late teens and early 20s. I was introduced to it around 18 to 19 years old through one of my older cousin's friends at a party one time. And it always stuck in my head because that person was telling me I could make a lot of money betting on sports. I didn't really think too much into it until a couple of months later. I was sitting in a university lecture room with my friends and they had brought it up. That's when I remember the party and the guy telling me I can make money with it, so I decided I would take the risk. I developed a quote-unquote strategy and used the money I had saved up from my summer job at Gap, which wasn't too much money now that I look back at it. It was around, I think, $1,500. I deposited $500, lost it, another $500, lost it. And then the last $500 I managed to flip to $14,000, which was a crazy amount of money to me at that time. I was feeling like a fucking boss at that moment, really. I was like 19 years old with $14,000 that I had just made in a little under a month. I withdrew that money. I bought a bunch of things for me and my family. I remember going to the mall and cashing out on a pair of white Air Forces without even looking at the price. Anyway, like most gambling stories, I decided to redeposit and with the mindset that now I was going to make enough money to pay my parents' debt off. And you guys probably know where this ends up. I ended up losing everything. Technically, I would say I made a slight amount of profit at the end of the day because of the things I bought. However, I had no money left to show for when it was all said and done. After that, I would gamble here and there for the next couple of NBA seasons, but didn't find much success and ultimately dropped it because I was tired of losing money. Now, I didn't end up wrecking my credit or life because of it, but I would have been much better off if I didn't partake in it at all. The house always wins, and my advice is to stay away from gambling/sports betting entirely. Some of my friends got really addicted to the casino and ended up losing like 30K. Another one ended up losing like 70K, which at that age, or any age really, is just crazy. Granted, they slowly got out of it, but I'm sure they would love to take all of it back if they could. With all that being said, you can understand why financial literacy and planning is important here as a young man. Live within your means, say no to unnecessary spending, cut back on expenses, constantly learn via YouTube and finance books, screw the partying, gambling, and chasing women even, because all of those things are unnecessary spending. Stay locked in, explore multiple sources of income, not just the 9 to 5, and look into long-term investment vehicles in order to grow your wealth slowly. Second pitfall is neglecting health and well-being. I know way too many guys that are my age, which, by the way, I'm 27 years old right now. I know way too many guys that neglected their health by drinking, smoking, doing drugs, eating poorly, not exercising enough, and just overall neglecting their health. Trust me, if you're in your later 20s, I'm sure you can attest to this too, because either you or people you know will severely be out of shape. And if you're someone who has neglected your health, fear not, because you can always make the necessary changes to better yourself. That's what we do on this channel anyway. We're looking to get 1% better every day. Now back to neglecting your health. You will not see the damage being done when you are younger, let's say from 18 to 25. However, once you reach that 25 to 30 age range, that's when the results start to show. If you were putting in the work, then you'll start to look better, more fit overall, veer away from the average Joe pack in a positive way. Similarly, if you were neglecting your health, 25 is the age where it starts to show on your body, your skin, etc. You will noticeably look more out of shape. Maybe your skin will be considerably worse, and you'll start to veer away from the average Joe in a negative way. If you were to put this on a line graph with the x-axis being age and y being 0 to hundreds in terms of health, and 50 being the baseline, from 0 to 25 age range, everyone relatively looks the same in terms of health. But once you reach that 25 age range, then the people who are exercising, eating clean, saying no to drugs and alcohol, start to inch closer to that 100 mark, while people that ate like shit, drank and smoked a lot, and just didn't exercise at all will inch closer to the 0 mark. And as we get older and older, the lines will just continue to get closer to that 100 and 0 unless you change your health habits. There's this video on the internet that was circulating before. It shows a guy asking another guy if he wanted $10 million. And obviously the guy said yes. Then he said, you can get the $10 million, but what if I told you that you would not wake up the next day? The guy immediately said that he didn't want the money anymore. The point of the clip is to point out that health is far more important than money, because most people would not take the $10 million, even though it's life-changing money, if they had to die the following day. Just wanted to give you guys some perspective onto why health is so important. Third pitfall is falling into the trap of complacency. What do I mean by this? I mean, when you're growing up, you have all these dreams and aspirations, thinking you can achieve some outrageous goal. But when you get to the age of 18 and up, you start to slowly lose that inner child and get hardened by the pressures of society. I've seen this time and time again with people my age and people in general, actually. For example, maybe you wanted to be a video editor or maybe an astronaut, but when you get older, you lose the desire to want to be that. Maybe it's not losing the desire, but it's more so losing the drive to want to achieve that goal. Instead, most people end up working a job that they hate, getting with a woman that they don't really like but settle for because, hey, everyone else is getting married, so I need to find someone ASAP. I've seen too many people fall into this trap of complacency and comfort. There's nothing wrong with this lifestyle if it's truly what you want out of it, but most people actually hate it. So, but they don't want to do anything about it. So they continue to live the same way day in and day out. You guys remember that episode of SpongeBob where Squidward is so fed up with living next to SpongeBob and Patrick because of their antics? And he decides, hey, he's going to move away and live with the squids in the squid neighborhood where everyone's house looks the same. At first, Squidward loves it because he's fitting in with like-minded individuals and he's doing the things he loves. But after doing it every single day, he realizes that he actually hates it. Thankfully, SpongeBob and Patrick end up bailing him out and getting him out of there. But in real life, a lot of people slip through the cracks and give up. They live a life that they do not like. They stay trapped for the rest of their miserable days. Don't let that be you. You can go through periods of time where you're working a job you don't like, but always have that bigger goal in mind that you're working on. Fourth pitfall is choosing the wrong woman. I'm sure you guys have either know someone or have heard stories of guys losing their lives either literally or figuratively because they chose the wrong woman. Do not make that same mistake. I know for the most part you guys have to go through experience to really get a feel for what a good woman is versus a bad woman. But like I said earlier, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So as a young man, your priority should be to work on yourself and create something of yourself, not on women. If one enters your life and complements it rather than creates difficulties, then sure, go for it and see where it takes you. However, from my experience, 90% of the time, it's going to be a waste of time and energy that you could be putting into honing your own craft. Women will always be there, so it's imperative that you do not focus on that, especially in your building years. I know a guy that I went to high school with who happened to be with a girl for 7 years, but it was a really toxic relationship. It started off with arguments and whatnot, petty shit, but eventually over the years, it escalated to the point of physical violence. She went as far as posting his nudes at a local park, which is, by the way, absolutely diabolical. But because of this, he entered a rage that ended up with him trying to run her over, but failing, thankfully. He spent time in prison, and then he had to be on house arrest for a year afterwards. If you listen to the story thinking, holy shit, then you are absolutely correct. Holy shit, indeed. It was a huge waste of time and energy for this guy, as he could have spent that just working on himself and not on a woman that would eventually become his downfall. This is an extreme story, but if you choose the wrong woman, you will most certainly feel the burn eventually down the line. Make sure to look out for red flags and always put yourself first, and only deal with women that are complements to your life. Last pitfall that young men face is comparison. Now, comparison is the thief of joy, my friends. You could be admiring your car or something on a nice summer's day, just thinking about all the hard work you put in to achieve it. But the second a nicer car drives by, you start to feel sad and like you're not enough because someone else has a nicer car. Now, if this sounded stupid to you, it's because it is stupid, but it's really how most people operate. People will compare themselves to others all the time and lose their own self-worth in the process, especially as a young man, because as men, we are valued based on our achievements and success. With the rise of social media, it has become even more of a problem because now you are comparing yourself to people on a global scale. The algorithm is constantly pushing out content that is carefully curated with Lambos, hot women, and extravagant lifestyles. It's easy to fall into that trap of constantly comparing yourself to others, but let me be the one to tell you that this is one of the most toxic things you can do to yourself. You're polluting your mind with negative thought patterns, thinking you're not enough based on off an Instagram reel. If you find yourself comparing yourself to others, then snap out of it. Stay in your own lane, my friend. Make sure all your time and energy is going towards bettering yourself. You should be comparing yourself to yourself, aiming to be 1% better every day. The old you should be looking at the new you in amazement. I know I've struggled with comparison most of my young adult life, constantly thinking I wasn't good enough because I saw other guys flexing with money, cars, and women. At the end of the day, comparing myself to others did nothing to better my life, and I would have been much better off had I just focused on bettering myself. Everyone's timeline is different, so there's no use focusing on someone else's timeline. Stay in your own lane, my friend. And there you guys have it. Those are the 5 most common pitfalls of young men. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys agree, disagree? What are some pitfalls you have faced yourselves? Let me know, and as always, thanks for watching and stay frosty, my friends.